All right, I think we'll get started here. I'm Pat Plingo from Yale Appliance, welcoming you today to our webinar topic, Kitchen Appliance Trends to Consider for 2021. We have a panel from our team here today to help out with the Q&A. We have Dennis McDonald, our Vice President of Sales. We have Ricky Robitaille, our Director of Facilities. We have Manny Gonzalez from our training department. We have Saba Wahid who's our resident chef. And we have Steve Scheinkoff, our CEO, who's gonna take over the presentation today. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. We are recording this presentation and we'll follow up and share the recording and deck afterwards. We got a lot of questions in the registration, which we'll get to. And please feel free to use the Q&A feature in Zoom to send us questions along the way. We'll do our best to make it through as many questions as possible. And at the end, we're going to ask for you to help us vote for our next webinar topic. So we'll let us know how to do that at the end. And with that out of the way, Steve, do you want to take over?
All righty. Thank you, Pat. And thank you, everybody, for doing your pre-Memorial Day Thursday morning, 11 o'clock with us. We appreciate it. Today's webinar is Kitchen Trends, Features, and Problems. I want to take you back a little bit. Whoa, webinar's not working here. Okay, there we go. Year was 2017. Hot trend was black stainless steel. And I'll never forget, it just happened to be serendipity. I had two different manufacturers in my office. They said that black stainless steel was 35% of the package sales at box stores. And I said, well, how much is it at Yale? And they said almost zero. So I'm like, I brought in our very rebellious director of sales, Dennis McDonald. I said, why aren't we selling black steel? And he goes, well, it's easy. It scratches and it can't be repaired once it's scratched. I'm like, there's no way every manufacturer would produce a product with basically a black oxide film on it that could be easily breached. No way. And this was a huge trend. So what I did was I took every major manufacturer French door refrigerator, did what my then toddler would do, take a fork and scratched every one of them. And that's what it looked like. Every one of them scratched. And what's worse is there's no solution for that breach. And what's even worse yet is the fact that it's considered cosmetic by the manufacturer, so it's not warrantyable. So you had two choices, either to either live with it and hope for the refrigerator or stove or dishwasher to die a premature death where you could replace it, or you had to live with it. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today is, there's some trends out there that you probably want to stay away from. And there's some trends that you probably want to look into. And we're going to look at both today. And here's what we got for you. We have 9 trends, 3 features, including the new phenomenon of air fry. And then we've got 2 problems. The last one, long appliance lead times, kind of overarches everything. There's logistic and supply issues unlike any other time I've ever had in my 36 years at Yale, that will really make you react in ways and choose things, not just in appliances, but in lumber, cars, whatever. They'll make you choose things that you may not necessarily would have taken as your first choice. So let's take a look. First, and I just want to remember, these are past webinars. And construction, according to our Ricky Robitaille, is mostly about design and scheduling. We're going to get into build out. We're going to get into designing and scheduling like the other webinars. We're going to actually start picking stuff in this webinar. So it's more into 2, 3, whereas the first bunch of webinars were about how to do things. This is about how to pick things. So let's get into our first trend. That's stainless steel. Or more appropriately, is stainless steel going out as a finish, which is a refrain that we keep hearing every 5 years or so. This is an interesting picture because this is Thermador. This is a brand new kitchen we put in Hanover, and it's all stainless steel except for the panel we put in the refrigerator. Okay, so let's just say stainless steel is going out. Well, No one's told the luxury people. Miele is on the left, Sub-Zero, Wolf in the middle, Jen Air, are almost exclusively stainless steel lines other than panelizing. So if you're out buying really your dream kitchen, it's almost most likely going to be some portion stainless steel. Okay, if stainless steel is going out, what's the next best finish? Next best finish is the one finish that's stainless actually replaced. This is white, high gloss white. This is cafe. But this is only 5 to 10% of the market, probably 5 to 8% of the market. So if stainless is going out, what's taking that place? Because it's not white. And the other thing is manufacturers have tried all sorts of things. These are just the recently discontinued finishes. And believe me, manufacturers want to produce the next finish because if they have a unique finish for that 1 to 2 years, the market share they could get would be enormous, but it's just not happening. Okay. Now I know there's a lot of designers and a lot of people building things, but you got to remember, with the case study, this is my kitchen on the left, my sister's on the right. I had no idea what she was doing. She had no idea what I was doing. But we went with stainless because when you're building a house and you've got 1,000 different decisions, sometimes you defer to the easiest. And stainless is the easiest. It matches every wood tone. It matches the ubiquitous white that you see that's not going out. It matches every granite type, every marble type, every flooring type. So sometimes, when you're building a house, you get 1,000 different decisions. It's easy and it matches. No one's ever going to walk the kitchen and say, God, stainless. That trend went out 10 years ago. So stainless is not going out as a trend. Feel free to buy your stainless steel appliances. But what about custom colors? Here's an interesting stat. This is a line called Blue Star. They have 1,000 different colors. 75% of their ranges that we sell, and almost 100% of the La Cornues, are custom colors. But it's really interesting when you look at the stats that it's one piece, right? It's just a piece. It's like a highlighted piece. So it's not this. I love this picture. Love the microwave in the back right. It's not all orange, but a pop of orange, say, right? So people are buying custom colors and highlighting their kitchens with it, but they're not doing this. They're not buying the Blue Star in all blue, which I'll show you a picture of later, or all La Cornue in green, or all Viking in yellow, or all Heston in citrus. So really what people are doing is they're buying it as a pop. So custom finishes are in, and here's some of the best companies. I'll go over briefly. La Cornue, which is a American-owned, French-inspired range. They execute color well. 50 colors, 8 trim options. Blue Star, this is their all blue kitchen. They have 1,000 colors, 10 different trims. In both two, you can customize your own finish as well. Viking's got the new rose bold. They have about 18 different finishes. A lot of the Italian ranges, Berzoni, Ilve, Verona, have a number of different finishes as well. Here's a new line that we'll be talking about later. This is Heston. They have 12 groovy California finishes as well. Let's talk about the trend towards smart appliances. You've heard a lot about them. We all grew up watching the Jetsons, right? Jane, his wife, would talk into his machine and out would pop out pizza. Or if you go to Star Trek, they'd all ask the machine delivered perfect pizza. And it wasn't too long ago in 2018 where Jen Air stated that very shortly you'd be able to talk into your wall oven, say you want lasagna. The wall oven would make the lasagna based on the way you want it made, would scan for ingredients in the refrigerator, order those out on your Amazon account, and then set the dishwasher time for the proper cycle. Yet here we are in 2021, and we're no closer than we were in 2018. The best smart appliance ever created was this Lynx MyChef. This is a sensor operator. It was operated by 300 sensors. It had a learning algorithm. And it's available. We put it in our Framingham store, and I think we have one in Dorchester. It had a learning algorithm. It would learn what your medium rare was as opposed to mine. It would text you to turn the food over and then text you to take it off. It had this huge recipe center where you could just tag the recipe. It would make it for you, give you the time, and it would do it by sensor. I mean, it's all, those are infrared tridents. So give you what the Fahrenheit was, what the temperature was, how long it would take to make. Yet my chef isn't around in 2021. And I don't think that the promise has lived up to the functionality, at least I mean, cooking, you have, the Thermal Home Connect, which is good, which has recipe tie-ins. You've got JenAir. They used to have a Yumlio app that they integrated with their range, but we're not there yet. Other than the basic on-off, cycle times, we're not seeing smart appliance yet. Now, 5 years from now, maybe a different story. Some of the best smart appliances, you've probably seen the Samsung, they've marketed the family hub to death, where you can look inside the refrigerator from the grocery store so you don't buy, in my case, 3 or 4 Dijon mustards because you had 3 or 4 in there. But that isn't really taken off because you already have a smart hub in your pocket, in your smartphone. Some of the other kind of cool things that's done other than just basic on-off and cycles is, the cafe's got the Keurig system where you can schedule your brewed coffee at a certain time. It's kind of neat. Actually, the one that works the best is the simplest. It's the Weber iGrill. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. They've had the iGrill app for a while, and they've just launched into creating smart grills. And it works just off basic Bluetooth thermometers. Tell you when to, it'll text you when to turn the food over and text you when to take the food off. But it's not by sensors or anything complicated. It's just Bluetooth thermometers. And the best category, believe it or not, and if you got kids in college, they'll already tell you this, is laundry. I mean, how many times you go down the basement and you find out you got 4 minutes and 22 seconds left and you can't go up because you'd go back down again. So smart laundry gives you the cycle time, and some of the cool ones like GE will, with the auto dispenser, say how much detergent you have left. You can turn it on or off. And then the washer will set the dryer cycle on certain ones too. So actually the least sophisticated laundry is probably the best for smart. And I think smart's going to be good to look at, but not now. You're not going to get that tremendous Jetson-like functionality. Induction. Now, we've talked about induction before, and induction is the best way of cooking. You can see all these benefits. If you're a Massachusetts homeowner, pay attention to the last one. Makeup laws, meaning vents are 400 CFM or less, unless you need a return. So induction does all that stuff, but the trend towards induction has nothing to do with the fact that it's way better than gas or electric. It has to do with California. California is looking to pass a ban on gas ranges. Now, why gas? Because putting a combustible fuel in your home has led to asthma in kids. It's called IAP, or internal air pollution, or SBS, building syndrome. I think personally, if you vent properly, you get by all of those issues, but you can't ignore California because Energy Star was an initial California program where refrigerators had to be a certain level of efficiency or they couldn't be sold in California. So as California goes, as Lee Iacocca says, the rest of the country goes. But it's really interesting. So a lot of manufacturers have started building products. I'm not sure whether they built it now or as a hedge towards the future. You see a 36-inch induction 5 years ago. You didn't see now Bertazzoni's got it. Wolf has it. Viking has it. I think Decor has it. La Cornue came out with it in their Cornue Phase series. They have it now in their modules. So induction's coming as a trend. You see Fisher Paykel. This is their new 48-inch. It's half induction, half pro gas. But I think it's like, when I think of gas stoves, I think of gas cars. We're going to drive around in gas cars until probably 2035 anyway. And the problem with banning gas ranges is if you go with induction or electric, you need 30 to 50 amps per household. Multiply that by millions of households, then you need to rethink your grid. So I don't think you're going to see a ban and someone knocking your door saying at a gas range, get it out anytime soon. I think maybe a slow phasing. But for people building new kitchens, I think you look at induction just on its merits, that it is just that much better. The trend to unknown and operands, I mentioned briefly, there's a lot of supply issues out there. So you have to pivot and either decide to either put a hole in your kitchen in certain areas or to fill in with certain brands. And there's some really interesting brands to consider. First one is Beko. Not really all that popular here up until last year, but very popular now, popular in Europe. I know several of you are on this call. If you take a look at a Beko versus Bosch, you look from a specification standpoint, 39 dB is silent. 44 dB is quiet. 39 is silent. Now, if you take a look, in case that Jen Air doesn't set the right cycle, Bechko's got the Aquintents, got different cycles. It's got an ion guard to prevent odors. It's got a good warranty, and it's Wi-Fi for whatever you need a Wi-Fi for a dishwasher for. But the point's kind of moot. And I've had Bosch dishwashers, and they have a well-earned reputation that you can't buy. That it's a great dishwasher, it's quiet, it works. But unfortunately, there's no Bosch dishwashers being made under $900 currently. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to pivot to a Beko, maybe KitchenAid if they have. Miele's got them at $1,000. LG you might want to consider. But certainly Beko is a brand that's done well because they've had a supply where nobody else has. Their refrigerators have blue lighting that mimic photosynthesis to keep your vegetables fresher longer. It's an interesting story, interesting company. Do you pivot from a Bosch to a Beko? Perhaps. Here's another one. Wolf is redoing their ranges. So you've got a September to, I have a Wolf range. So you have a September to a December availability. If you need something now, do you consider it Heston range? Heston's from California, commercial supplier, 12 colors, 30,000 BTU burner, 30,000. The next best is actually their next best burner, 23,000 BTU in the sealed, and then 15 with a thermostatically controlled griddle. It's a decent product. Do you consider one of those in one of the 12 colors we talked about? Here's one, Sub-Zero, they now have in certain models, and I love Sub-Zero, and why wouldn't you, to keep food fresh for a longer period of time. But you can't get some of them until December of this year. What do you fill in? Would you fill in with a True? You pick your frozen food out of a True freezer now, out of Whole Foods and Wegmans, and probably Stop and Shop. Do you put it in your house? They've got a number of different finishes, a number of different accents. It's actually more expensive. It's the only product more expensive than Sub-Zero. How about this one? We just did a live stream with SKS. SKS will give you sous vide, induction, high output burners, 100 BTU simmer, equivalent to the Thermador Extra Low. It also gives you a combi steam. We did a live stream. Saab is going to be on the call after that. We just live streamed. It actually works. I'm like shocked that a product does all that. Now, do you continue to go with maybe some of the entrenched products like a Wolf Thermador, or do you consider something like that if you can't get the other ones? Interesting. Yale, not to slander my own brand here, but we're not to the level of a True or Sub-Zero, but it's $1,500 with a 5-year warranty. Do you pivot to a brand like this if you can't get some of the other brands? Certainly something to consider, and it's got a warranty. Let's talk about downdrafts very briefly, because the more you cook, the less you need a downdraft, especially if you're doing a new kitchen. If you're planning a downdraft on the Middle Island, think again. I know Dennis and I are at odds on this. I don't think for people that cook, downdrafts are a good consideration. Here's why. Here's how you vent. And we could do a webinar if you want to do a webinar just on venting. As you know, CFM, or the power of the exhaust, that's cubic foot per minute, or how many cubes of air go through that. Most people get that. The higher the CFM, the better the hood. What people don't get, and why in downdrafts fails, because there's no capture area. So if you're cooking and you burn up or something like that, smoke is channeled through the hood and then exhaust. It's not just immediately sucked through the hood. Then you got venting direction, which is straight up or straight back. The more you turn it, the less efficient it becomes, and then the proper duct size. This is an interesting picture Manny put in there. This hood, this is a Chang hood by Zephyr, one of the signature hoods. Cost $3,000. Guess what? It won't work. It's only 22 3/4. It needs to be 24 inches. So if you see the grill there, the smoke's going to billow right past that hood. And if you've got smoke alarms in your kitchen, definitely it's going to set those off. So you want at least 24 inches depth. Front control ranges. Most of the controls you're seeing now are going from the back to the front. And here's a good picture why. The G Cafe, see the beautiful backsplash? You can see it there without getting a freestanding. Now there's 3 types of ranges available. There's freestanding, which a lot of people have. It's got the controls in the back. And then you got slide in, which is really for newer construction, only you can put it in existing. It's got the lips on either side, and it doesn't go all the way back, so you build around it, so there's no seams, so it's much more cleanable. But more manufacturers going from that to a front control range. What you're going to see is more front control, less expensive, and the freestanding ranges being like the basic ones up to say $600. So you're going to see front controls, you're probably going to buy them. And the difference between that and a slide in is it's going to be much easier to do in an existing application. Let's go into some modes. This is an interesting one. It's called air fry. Now, I know a lot of you are from out of town. We have a local chain called Be Good. And I take my 4.5-year-old daughter to Be Goods and try to get her to eat healthy French fries. They have an oven that works on convection. And they blow the French fries so they don't use oil. So it's got 8 less grams of fat, 150 less calories per serving. So really the logic behind this is high-speed convection. So you see a lot of manufacturers going to the air fry, but we've done tests and it doesn't work. So if you're looking to buy air fry, I would wait a few years until they perfect it. But right now, it doesn't do it. Now, it's a good try, admirable, but first iteration, you're not going to get a crispy French fry. Sab is going to be on the call. She'll probably tell you better ways to just make French fries just in regular convection modes. Here's one that I actually believe in, auto dispensers. And it's funny because I got a call this morning from one of my best friends. His washer is out after 6 years. He asked me if it's normal. And I asked him, well, how much detergent you put in your front load? And he goes, oh, I don't know, half cup. I'm like, well, you only need a capful. And here's what happens when you put in 1/8 of a cup, 1/4 cup, half cup of high efficient detergent. It creates suds. The suds stay in the machine. And what happens over time, it eats away at the bearings. So he's having problems spinning is because the bearings start to go in his washer. So you only need a capful. Now, most people can't pour a capful. So what you do is you get an auto dispenser, and these don't cost a lot more at GE, Whirlpool, LG have them, Samsung, I believe, has them. You load it up and you let the machine do the work. The machine loads it at the right time during the cycle with the right amount. So you don't have that problem 6 to 10 years from now. Miele, interesting enough, just introducing their $2,000 G700, 7000 series dishwasher. I always use those tripads, but people that have them love them. They say that does the right thing. If you ever see their dishwasher, it's like it works just so complicated, but I guess it actually does the right amount of detergent at the right time. But for laundry, absolutely consider it because it doesn't cost all that much more to do. Sous vide, this is another great mode Saba loves. This is precision boiling in a bag. Actually works. Vacuum seal the bag. You work on internal temperature. You cook the steak to 135, 185, and you have a perfectly cooked steak every time. Problem is, sous vide, the only way you're going to get it is if with a Gaggenau steam oven at 10,000, Miele steam oven at 7,000, and then SKS sous vide has it in their pro range starting at about 10,000. When you start seeing into the lower prices at, a GE Cafe, maybe LG, Samsung, then you'll see it as a real trend because it really works, but it's just too expensive right now. Let's go into service. And again, a lot of you, not that I'm stalking, are from California. And here's the rap most dealers have is the manufacturers are going to take care of the problems. I want you to think, because the average person in the call, I would suspect, is doing a renovation between $10,000 and $40,000. And you'll research items as you should to death. And the one thing you'll miss is who's going to fix it. Because this is just a basic graphic. I'm really surprised to see it. It was taken off Monday because usually service is 2 to 1 over deliveries most of the time, with installation being about 1/3. And I can tell you, they're not doing it for us. Manufacturers aren't fixing their own stuff with some rare exceptions. So part of your shopping process is to figure out what can get fixed the best. So if you're thinking, for a high-end kitchen, Wolf, Miele, Thermador, Jen Air, all good. I'd look at the deal and then look to see what the local person that's reputable in the area, and you got to Google and Yelp it to figure out what can get fixed in your area the fastest, the best, the most competent, because it's great to have all these features. It's even better if they actually work. It's even better if you can get them fixed. But let me just tell you, just from this graphic, manufacturers aren't going to be doing it for you. It's got to be somebody else, dealer, local servicer. This is funny. You know, we talk about lead times. I'm going to get into that in a second. So we did a lead time and we interviewed a lot of major companies, and we interviewed the president of Miele US. And I asked him, I go, so Jan, how's your supply chain? He goes, good. I feel pretty good where we are, unless there's some port problems in Los Angeles. This was back in February, and now everybody knows there's port problems in Los Angeles. And that's just only one of the problems, right? What COVID's done is hit the supply chain. We're now in what? Say month 14, 15, and it's hit it at certain times. And it's created certainly loss of man hours in factories, efficiencies, because factories are based on efficiency, not social distancing. You add to it the fact that it's a global supply chain. So if you're getting, you know, back when I first started, Maytag was built in Newton, Iowa, designed in Newton, Iowa, with parts from Newton, Iowa. Now you take that same washer and it's being built, say, in St. Joseph, Michigan, with parts from China, Mexico, Vietnam, maybe Europe. If one of those parts companies goes down due to COVID, that product isn't being made. And that's part of the problem. Then you add on some of the things you may have heard of, raw material shortages. You know, there's chips, you know, one of my friends said, you know, you can't get an F-150 because, you know, they got computer chip problems, and that's affected certain parts of the appliances. You got container shortages now. You know, you have an insulation plant that supplies most of the domestic manufacturing being destroyed in an ice storm in Dallas, Texas, if you can believe it. So you're going to have problems finding refrigerators soon. So really, there's two ways you get around it. One is to open yourself up to possibilities. And I'll get more of this in the key takeaways. You know, figure out what you want. If it's a quiet dishwasher, great. It's going to be a quiet Bosch dishwasher under $900. You're going to wait. So you want to figure out what the features you want, and then you open yourself up to the brands. So that's part of the key takeaways here, is be wary of new trends and new features, really, because some of them work, some of them don't. You want to consider different brands, especially if you're dealing with products with long lead times. Now, I want to put an asterisk on this because I know some of the new brands may be listening, if they can be fixed. And that's something that you have to figure out. Be feature loyal, as I say. Figure out if it's a quiet dishwasher, good. If it's a quiet specific dishwasher, probably not that good, because a lot of these brands have problems. And then you want to order early to keep your project on track. Usually I would say, you know, a month or two is good. But now, if you're submitting plans to your cabinet shop, and your cabinet shop takes 3 months, and you're going back and forth, you know, as we go into other webinars, we talk about how to interact with cabinet shops. Once you know what you get, the cabinet shop can now do the design, and typically it's based around your sinks and stoves. That's when you want to order your appliances. You give an appliance store 6 months, you shouldn't have a problem. That goes way away when I used to say, yeah, 1 to 2 months, or typically we'll have it in stock. And that's really it. I want to leave you with Drake's Kitchen. This kitchen's about $750,000, and yes, he used white for it. So don't feel bad using white and stainless steel if one of the most famous rappers did it. He did introduce the blue chairs. He introduced a little bit of color. Next webinar is June 23rd at 11. You can choose it. And then I want to introduce the people helping me help you answer your questions. Ricky Robitaille is in charge of construction here. We have an ice bear on the roof, as I said last time, in Dorchester. He's in charge of putting solar in Framingham. He understands how to install things. He was the head of Yale Install. We have 18 installers, 18 installation crews that he used to run. Dennis McDonald, my chief adversary here, he looks at things different, but he's the chief merchandiser right down to the last tile here at Yale. That includes appliances as well. You got Manny, who's in charge of training. Pat, who's really the face of Yale. And of course, last but not least, Saba, who's off the triumphant winner. She's now the a chopped grand champion, crowned by Martha Stewart, no less. Not a current fan of air frying, but she's in charge of testing all the stuff for whether it actually works or not. So I'm going to send it back to you, Pat. Thank you all for listening, and we'll field some questions.
Thanks, Steve. Before we get into the Q&A, just want to remind everybody again, we just mentioned, you guys can help us pick the next topic for our webinar. If you email help@yaleappliance.com, we'll take those votes and use that to inform our next topic. So to kick us off here, let's see. Steve, you want to take this question? What are benefits and drawbacks of a column, refrigerator, and freezer?
The benefit of the columns is basically, hey, it looks good. It's flat. Like if we look at Drake's kitchen, he's done column style on the left-hand side. It looks like it's seamless. It's great for cabinets. I don't like it as much as stainless steel, so you may as well get a stainless steel refrigerator. But the better the cabinet, the better the column. And you can put refrigerators anywhere. For lefties out there, you can put a freezer on your right instead of your left. You can do point of use. You can put it anywhere. That's the benefits. And you can do it in any particular style. The great thing is Sub-Zero, Thermador, General, all of their styles. So you can do drawers, you can do French doors. Each manufacturer's got its pluses and minuses. So you get selection. The bad news is it's the most expensive per cubic footage. And because it's not just a counter depth, it's an integrated, you lose that much in depth. So it is the most expensive per square footage, but from a look standpoint, fantastic. It's just expensive to buy. And you will need more than one typically. I would think you probably need a refrigerator and then maybe a point of use freezer as well.
Great, thank you. Dennis, I'll throw this one to you. Induction cooktops, what's new in the induction cooktop world?
When it comes to induction cooktops, through COVID, honestly, there hasn't been a lot of new releases in induction per se. GE Cafe came out with a new induction cooktop that has some an app setting that you can use that has some gourmet cooking in it. So I wouldn't say anything really new that hasn't been out on the market already that I would say is game changing, other than what's been out and we've talked about on previous blogs and whatnot.
Great, thank you. Saba, I'll throw this one to you. Any full-sized ovens that also function as a steam oven, not just with the steam assist?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that the Thermador is probably the closest in size to a large capacity steam oven. It does operate as a regular convection oven, a full steam oven, or a combination of both. You can get it in a single oven built-in style profile, or it can come as a double oven with the combi steam oven on top and a regular convection oven on the bottom. So that's definitely the closest in size to a regular capacity oven. And then in line with that, there's also the Miele Double XL, which is slightly smaller in terms of the cavity, but it is larger than most of the other steam ovens on the market. And that one, I believe, is a 2.7 cubic feet. So all, same capabilities, full steam, combi steam, and convection. Plus, Miele has a more sophisticated interface with guided cooking, plus sous vide and tons of other modes.
Awesome, thank you, Saba. Ricky, I'll throw this one to you. This is a common question we see. The question is, I have an all gas range. I want to change to dual fuel. How do I know if I have the power? How do you figure that out?
Well, first you want to probably get an appliance installer out to your home to evaluate the situation. The way you can find out for yourself is you would go to your electrical panel and first of all, find out how many amps you have. Most dual fuels require 30 to 50 amps, depending on the size. So if you got a typical home with only 100 amp service, chances are you're going to probably need to upgrade your service to get that dual fuel oven in. So that's the quickest way to see is start at the electrical panel itself.
Great, Ricky, thank you. Keep using the Q&A feature in Zoom to send in your questions here. We'll dive into as many as we can get to. For our panel here, the difference between a 120 volts and a 240 volt speed oven, what's the difference there besides just the difference in voltage?
Go ahead, Ricky.
That would be as a mechanical standpoint, you're going to get more power on the 240 volt versus the 120 volt. So on a mechanical standpoint, Dennis can probably break it down on the actual appliance itself.
Yeah, in some cases, your considerations there you want to pay attention to are some models offer both 120 and 220 even within a brand, but the interfaces themselves function a little differently. The way they may be a little bit more user friendly in one versus the other. Other than that, it is generally speed. It really more often than not comes back to the electrical and what's capable in the home, and really thinking about how often you're going to use some of those features in it, and really what you're using it for. You know, people that do some of this technology sometimes like the idea of it, but we really recommend you go to a store that maybe has it live where you can actually see, touch, feel it, and really make sure that all that innovation and between the models when you get to power really makes sense for you, because you're building in most cases a custom cutout very specific to that individual piece you end up selecting. So just do a little bit of research. I think it could come back as much as anything. You'd be happy with the power. They both work okay, but I really think you need to look at those interfaces between the two powers and make sure what makes sense for you.
Thanks, Dennis. Next up, refrigeration category. Is the new product drawer technology hype or something that is worthwhile? I think we touched on that. Maybe Steve or Dennis weigh in on that.
I'm sorry. It's the well, you know, we did a experiment because you know, the new thing is about freshness. It's not about freshness. It's about it's scrubbing the gases. What do they call them? It's not ethanol. What is it, Dennis? I can't remember the word. It starts with an E. So it's ethylene. Ethylene. I'm sorry, it's ethylene gas. So scrubbing ethylene gases. It's the you know, the Sub-Zero air scrubber. You know, Becco's got the drawer. Thermo's got the Vita Fresh drawer. The best performing of the 5 was Sub-Zero, and then the next one was Becco, because they have a way to trap and scrub gases off the foods. And I think that's what freshness is. What the refrigerator is like, you go back to the 60s, it's one compressor. Sub-Zero made the 2 compressors. So really what it does is it keeps the air on the refrigerator side in the refrigerator and the air on the freezer side. Now, a lot of companies are doing that. So basically what happens is the air doesn't cycle. So if you're having like fresh fish and your refrigerator doesn't cycle to your ice cream in your freezer. And now what the next iteration is scrubbers and ethylene filters to keep your food fresher for a longer period of time. Sub-Zero was the first. You know, Becco, Thermador, and others have that capability. Some don't. I would say of our experiments, Samsung doesn't, and it performed the poorest when we we took a time elapse of what fruits and vegetables look like over a month. So there is something to that.
Thanks, Steve. Saba, I'll kick this one to you. How easy is it to clean a sous vide built-in drawer? I was interested in installing one, but also hearing maybe it's not enough space for that.
I am not familiar with sous vide built-in drawers. We do have vacuum drawers, so I don't know if the question was regarding vacuum drawers that will assist in the sous vide cooking, but for sous vide specifically, it would be a water bath that would come in a range such as the SKS, or in the capability to do sous vide cooking in a steam oven. So in terms of a drawer, there aren't any sous vide drawers that I know of, but the vacuum sealing drawers, which assist in sous vide style cooking. So yes, you have limited space with the vacuum sealing drawers, but the solution to that is just making multiple packages of your vacuum sealed proteins for sous vide cooking. The great thing about the vacuum drawers is that you have different levels of pressure that you can use to preserve your food. You can preserve wine. You can even reseal open packages of chips with lower pressure without crushing them. So there are a lot of benefits to using that, but yes, the space is a little limited.
If I can just chime in for a second, and nowhere near your capability with sous vide. If everyone wants to go home and sous vide tonight, here's what you do. Take some tin foil, wrap up some salmon tonight, and put it in your dishwasher cycle and run it on a full cycle. You laugh, but it works. I did that as a test. You can turn your dishwasher into a sous vide on a major cycle. But I think for the person asking for the drawer, I think that, to Saba's point, that's to seal and lock the bag. That's not for the sous vide actual bath.
Thanks, Steve. We did that test, still maybe on our YouTube channel from a number of years back. If we missed the mark there on that answer, please use the Q&A and send in another question. Dennis, maybe pitch this one to you. Is the Thermador Freedom induction cooktop significantly different than other induction cooktops?
It is in the respect that you can use most of the surface to cook. I'm going to tell you with induction, and the question was earlier about what's new. At the end of the day, really, what you care about is how quickly it boils and how responsive it is, fast, high to low. Frankly, the Wolf does the best job of that. If you were to put a pan on a Freedom next to a Wolf, it's gonna boil faster. Just, that's truth be told. That's just factual. Significantly, in fact. The Freedom, though, if you find yourself truly feeling as though you want to put unique pans that would not fit on the standard size burners of other induction cooktops, then it may be perfect to you. If you use a bigger griddle or random size things, just make sure that at the end of the day, Monday through Friday, when you use it to cook, it boils your water fast like you would expect it to. It simmers very quickly. The controls are simple to use. So it's functionality.
One thing, when we talk about new, I think we may have said new means like 2020 new, and there wasn't much anything new in 2020 other than some new brands coming in. But really the whole induction on a gas pro range is a newer phenomenon that you see more and more. And you see that 36-inch as far as revolutionary new induction cooktops. We didn't see it certainly last year.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Dennis. One about ventilation now. With a Wolf induction 36-inch cooktop, ordered a 600 CFM hood. Is that too big, especially considering Makeup Air in Massachusetts?
Well, yeah, it is too big when you consider Makeup Air in Massachusetts. Makeup Air is 400 CFM. I thought it was funny in 2007, but it's not that way anymore. And we've done a lot of other seminars when we talk about Makeup Air. I think that everybody on this call, if it's new, whether you need Makeup Air or not, or I don't know how hard it is to do this. You should consider doing makeup air. What makeup air is 10 foot, minimum 10 feet away on the other side of your kitchen. It lets fresh air in. So if you're putting a 600 CFM vent, you're gonna breach the makeup air depending on whether you're getting inspected or not. I think you should do makeup air, and I know in certain circumstances it's really hard. Can you ramp down to 400 CFM if you got 36-inch width and enough depth? I think you can in induction, but again, it depends on how you cook. I mean, if you're gonna cook like Saba, more is better. If you're doing just basically boiling, you can get away with 400. If you cook like her, more is better. So.
Thanks, Steve. Steam cooking, maybe Saba or Steve will weigh in on this. Are steam ovens worth the price, worth the investment?
Yeah, happy to jump in here. I am a big fan of steam ovens or convection steam ovens. I find them extremely versatile because you have your three basic cooking modes of steam, combi steam, and convection. And with those three modes, you can accomplish a lot, from making your own yogurt to sous vide cooking, which we mentioned earlier, to even steaming lobsters in 10 minutes, which gives you the most tender and flavorful results, to hundreds of other things that you can make. If you are looking to invest in a single oven for your cooking needs, I would recommend maybe one of the larger combi steam ovens like the Thermador or the XXL Miele if you were just looking to invest in one appliance. But a lot of times people are looking at the steam ovens as their secondary specialty appliance in addition to a range or a built-in wall oven. I do think they are worth the investment if you really appreciate the nutritional aspect of cooking and if you enjoy experimenting with your different cooking styles.
Great, thank you, Saba.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is you have to learn how to use it too. You know, one of the things that we take it for granted here because we have Saba on staff and anybody has any questions, she does cooking demos when you buy stuff here. But if this is something that you're just going to put on 350 and expect it to cook for you, that's not going to happen. You really need, we've got a lot of videos on it. And, when you buy things here, you have access to Saba. But it's not plug and play. You have to learn how to use it. That's the other thing. So if you're not going to do that, then don't buy a steam oven.
Thanks, Steve. This question about how are people using the new combination induction and gas ranges? I'd like to take that one.
You want up? Okay, I'll take it then. The rationale as to why I have a gas range was best determined by my girlfriend, who uses it more than I do, is saying she knows it's on. I think people have certain ways of doing things that they're accustomed to, familiar with. And if they've been cooking in gas, especially if they cook a lot and that's all they've been doing, they want the familiarity. However, there is no question in my mind that induction is a better surface. Now, induction, let me give you a short. Gas has been around since the 1920s. When we say induction is newer, it's been around since it was I think, discovered as a source, a magnetic source in 1980. How many people have things from 1980? And that's the newer part. But I just think in terms of cleaning, venting, child safety, you can't turn it on. Kid can't turn it on. Simmering, it's got an infinite simmer. Thermador says it's got a 100 B2 simmer because it turns on and off, because we know that at a certain level you need oxygen for a simmer. You get better simmer. I think that if you got a half and half, you'd end up using induction. But Saba, you've used both. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think having both cooking applications available to you gives you that sense of security. A lot of people come in trying to decide between gas or induction. You kind of have to make that hard decision. But now with various appliance manufacturers offering both in one single appliance, I think it that question is a non-factor now. So having both options definitely, I think, is comforting for people that they don't have to make that decision. And then you choose which side you want to use. I will say that using induction is a lot cleaner. Your cleanup at the end of the day is going to be quicker over the gas side, but totally is depends on your comfort level and style of cooking as well.
Thanks, Saba. Maybe Dennis or Steve weigh on, or Saba weigh in on this one actually. How beneficial is the shape of the burner? How does that matter when considering a range?
I mean, I'll say the concept was, I mean, the concept was you're probably maybe asking about a star-shaped burner or some other things that are out there. The idea was if you took a string and wrapped it around the shape of the star, there'd be, in theory, more flame on the pan, more contact time to the pan. There are certain burners out there that are single burners. There's certain burners out there that are called a dual stack burner, where there's a small center burner and then a larger, creating multiple rings of heat. You know, I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other. I think a high to low responsiveness with a good quality pan radiates the heat pretty well in most of them. Saba, I mean, would you feel one on just any differently, specifically with something you're particularly cooking?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think obviously the BTU output will also impact how quickly the pan will react as well. But yes, like in theory, the more gas ports you have, the more flame output, the more quickly the pan is supposed to heat up. But I think it really comes down to splitting hairs. It's a matter of a few seconds here and there. So it's hard to really differentiate one shape of burner versus the other, but the BTU output really sets them apart.
Thank you. What is the most advanced counter depth refrigerator that we see now?
Counter depth, integrated?
Counter depth.
I mean, listen, I would say if you were asking me right now, innovative. So there's counter depths that can actually be fully flush with cabinets, like Fisher Paykel makes a 72-inch tall that can truly be flush, more like a column, those columns you talked about. That's innovative. There's some that are clean steel. I mean, if we're talking raw performance, there's, this brands like Samsung that have all sorts of technology. So innovative's wide open. There's a brand like Beko that has innovative, refresh on the produce, how it uses its light setting to mimic light throughout the course of the day and keep the produce lasting longer. So big question there, I guess, would be a little hard to answer, but I guess it just depends on I always tell people this, make a list of what's most important to you, because when you start Googling this, it can get crazy. At the end of the day, really, what do we use a fridge for? What do we really want it to do? Hold food well, look good, but hold food well. After that, if you need it to be a TV or a tablet or an app, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you the sales don't generally translate that way. But when we're doing research, buying a kitchen, man, the marketers do a really good job of putting it all out there, and just don't fall prey. Make a list of what's most important and work backwards from there.
Thanks, Dennis. Saba, to you, have you seen a difference between cooking in a smart oven versus an oven with traditional controls? What are the pros and cons there?
So smart ovens are definitely newer to the market, and I haven't used a lot of the smart appliances just yet. I've experimented with a few. In terms of how the oven functions, it's still using the same oven functions. Where the smart capabilities come into play is that you're able to monitor through an app on your phone, but obviously you still have to be present to check on your food or turn your food, unless you're using a probe that is also connected to the app. So the oven should function exactly the same. It just depends on if you're manually programming it or using the smart app and the guided cooking program. And each smart appliance is different from the next. So what one brand is offering in their smart appliance might be different from the competitors. So it's hard to generalize also how those smart appliances function without testing every single one of them, which we're still in the process of reviewing and testing.
I would follow that up with this real quickly. You know, again, defining smart to someone that's not that smart in the cooking field every day. I would say, you know, Miele came out 10, 12 years ago with a feature called Master Chef. And it's smart in the respect that if you don't know how to cook, or maybe you're making salmon and you don't make that every day, or you're making a dish you make on a holiday and you just forget what temperature, what time, where to stick the temperature probe, what type of pan, that's still pretty smart to someone like me that doesn't cook all the time. And I'll tell you that it works really, really, really well. That's great technology that's been out that I think is very user-friendly and helpful. And ultimately, when you don't want to use the guide anymore on that feature, well, it's an option. It's just an option to remind you of the pan and write down where to put the temperature probe and all the rest. If we're talking about the idea that when I'm out in my car, I can preheat the oven on time and it'll tell me when to shut off and on all that, great technology. Again, it's just back to, will you find yourself truly using that? And I think the one thing smart appliances fall short on is that most of them use their own little individual apps. Nothing's meshed with an entire home yet. I think that's when smart appliances really have an aha moment. Up until then, you got to figure out, are you really going to use their unique app to do uniquely what it does within its uniquely singular format?
I agree. The smartest products we have aren't smart. You know, the Wolf Gourmet, not Wi-Fi. The Master Chef, which is probably state of the art for controls, not smart either. But they're the ones that will help you cook better.
Coming up on time here. So one last question to the group here. Do you see online purchases becoming more prevalent? What made a customer want to think about when thinking about purchasing online versus in store?
I'm sure you have your opinion on this too. I'm all for, you know, mea culpa. I buy a lot of stuff online, but there's no customization to it. You know, I buy food online, books online, the basic stuff. The problem is that, and we do a fair amount of online business, but typically what we'd like to do is figure out if we can actually deliver it or not. And what you really want dimensionally, you know, we want to have someone go over with you, whether your dryer's gas or electric, whether it'll fit in your space, whether it will go up your stairs in your threshold. I think, you know, we still do that on online purchases. We make sure that we call, everybody gets a phone call going through a checklist of stuff. But I think that when you're buying online, even when you know what you want, you still have to make sure that really our industry is really interesting insofar as most of the appliance stores are just basically showrooms with logistics factored out elsewhere. So they're more than happy to take the sale and more than happy to charge you 30% as a restocking charge when you make a mistake. So I would say just get somebody involved, just do the basics of it. Because for us, it's like, we want to make sure the pre-sale is right. And you can do it without a salesperson. We don't mind. We'd rather have a click to chat, but you know, you can go right through the funnel. But we still want to check, because delivery, installation, and service is the hardest part of buying an appliance for you, especially the delivery side. Service will come later. That's a nightmare that'll come probably within 6 months. But for the actual delivery of it, it's a problem that you need to make sure that's dialed down, buttoned down. So you make sure that refrigerator with the smart hub, or, you know, to Saba's point, you know, we talk about the Master Chef, that they attach the water line to it, or else you're not getting steam to make that bread. You want to make sure all that's dialed down, because that experience is just, you know, you got to go on, you know, just read reviews of what that's like. So we would prefer, we'll do it either way, but we would prefer to have some sort of interaction to just make sure that we're on your site, in your house, that actually what you bought, we can actually deliver. I don't know if you got anything to chime in on that, Dennis. You deal with that more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think you hit it. I mean, this is real easy, folks. Just do due diligence. Just Google. Anyone that sells internet-specific appliances only without any personal touch, their reviews are awful. They're not much above 2 because it's easy to take the sale. They can have a beautiful front end, but at the end of the day, the reputation is made when it goes wrong. And invariably, when you're trusting the least expensive shipping agents to ship things cross-country that has already come cross-country and touched multiple hands coming from overseas or wherever it comes half the time, that is where the reputation is lost. And that is where you are stuck. And just read what folks like yourself say, not on their website. Go to Yelp, go to Google, go to the Angie's List, go to the people that actually really matter and see. And not only see what it said, but when something went wrong, did they try to react? Did they try to do the right thing? I mean, that's really what matters. We see people doing the information stage online, of course, click to chat e-commerce, but to Steve's point, you want to talk to an expert. If you think about it like this, you turn your car on a few times a day, and you'd absolutely probably never buy a new car online and just have it shipped cross country, having never turned it on. In a refrigerator, you might touch 25, 30, 40 times a day. Why would you ever buy that online? And it runs 24 hours a day. You want to make sure that you actually know what you're getting there. And the final thing would be, if you look at true internet playing appliance stores, what else do they sell? Most of them sell anywhere between 500 and up to 1,300 brands of products. They'll sell you a camera, they'll sell you a toaster, heck, they'll sell you patio furniture. Pretty much anything they can sell. So really, do they really know anything about appliances is the $1 million question. So yeah, we feel strongly about it. We need to be there to make it easy for folks to shop, but ultimately you want an expert really, and you want to be involved in your final decision because it's hard money of yours that you're spending on something you're going to use a lot. So
Yeah, I'm okay with, don't talk to a salesperson, but talk to the delivery person. That's probably more important. And the other thing is, we're writing an article, and this will be the last thing I say. We're writing an article on how to protect yourself from deliveries. Is never sign anything unless it's boxed. Never. Make sure you walk it with the delivery person afterwards, because damage to premises is huge now. Damage to product. Don't sign for anything. Don't leave it in your garage, for heaven's sake. Make sure it's unboxed, signed for, open it up in case there's any glass broken. Because once you sign that document, you've released everybody. It becomes your problem. So really, all of you are probably very smart in the selection. Be equally as smart on the actual logistic part of getting it in your house. Because I'll tell you, that's the hard. I wish we could just sell appliances, because that's easy. Getting it in your house, servicing it, showing you with someone like Saba, that's really where the hardest part of what we do. So we'll end on that, I think.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Dennis, Saba, Ricky, for your help with all these questions. Just a reminder, you can help us pick the next topic. Send an email to help@yaleappliance.com. And with that, we'll call it a day. Have a great Memorial Day.